Airports run on two fuels, Jet A and tiny power trips. You surrender your shoes, then your dignity. And when a woman froze at the belt with a paper boarding pass, the guards treated her tote like it owed taxes. They boxed her in, quoted policy like scripture, and promised secondary as if it earned miles, until a man in a plain jacket stepped to the bin, laid his boarding pass down like a quiet badge, and said, calm as a fire code, "She's mine." 4 uniforms reached for the script, then for their memories, because the traveler they'd been performing for was the one who signs their recerts. If you've got a few minutes, I'll show you how 2 words cleared more than the line. They cleared the attitude. My name's Evan, and I travel for a living the way oysters produce pearls, under pressure and not because it's fun. Terminal C at 6:47 a.m. is a museum of bad decisions. Coffee that tastes like burned optimism, breakfast sandwiches shaped like regret, and a security line long enough to reconsider your career and your ancestors. The floor shines like it's been baptized. The bins are stacked like plastic gravestones. Everyone speaks in sighs. I know the choreography, laptop out, belt off, dignity optional. You learn the rhythms of a place like this, how a beat becomes a sermon, how a sign becomes a shield. The airport guard's uniform does something to posture, a little straighter, a little louder, a little more certain that "sir" is a verb, not a noun. She stepped into the frame like a misplaced page from someone else's story. Mid-50s maybe, with a cardigan the color of considerate decisions and a tote bag that had lived a life, stitched corners, a ribbon tied in a bow that said, "I keep lists." Her hair was neat in the way people are when they don't ask for much. She kept whispering "I'm sorry" to no one as if apologies could be currency. Her mistake wasn't dramatic, it never is. She dropped the paper boarding pass when she reached for a bin, and it skittered under the roller like a guilty thought. She bent too fast to catch it, knocked her tote, and the tote did what totes do, it confessed. Lip balm, keys, a paperback with a cracked spine. A family-sized pack of mints launched a small hailstorm over the belt. The conveyor hummed its indifferent lullaby. Guard 1 found his moment. There's always a guard 1, the one who smells overtime in your anxiety. "Ma'am, step back," he said, turning volume into virtue. A latex glove snapped like punctuation. "I'm sorry," she said again, voice fragile but steady. "That's my ticket, it." "Don't touch the belt," Guard 2 added, as if the belt had diplomatic immunity. Guard 2 had a square jaw and round ideas. He wore his radio like an opinion. "It slid my pass," she tried, tiptoeing the edge between explaining and pleading. "I can see it." Guard 3, the tall one with the shaved head and the eyebrows that wrote Yelp reviews, descended on the tote. "Random secondary," he announced, "which is airport for we're bored and you're convenient." He started unloading her life in public. Wallet modest, tissues soft, a pill bottle, vitamins, a folded grocery receipt with a smiley face. He turned the pill bottle like a jeweler inspecting a gem, then set it down with a gravity that suggested vitamins might unionize. "Any liquids?" Guard 2 asked, eyes hunting for a gotcha. She offered a travel-size lotion like it was contraband. "Just this, I didn't." "Put it in the bag," Guard 1 said, pointing at a clear plastic square like it was the Ark of the Covenant. "Zipper must be fully closed." She tried to close a bag that was already sealed. Her hands shook. The zipper didn't feel like cooperating. Anxiety has a way of making small tasks look like architecture. Behind me, the line practiced empathy the modern way, by studying phones that weren't turned on. A businessman tutted into his calendar. A couple in matching hoodies performed synchronized eye rolls. A kid asked his mom why the lady was in trouble. Mom invented a shoelace emergency. I fished a mint off the floor with the toe of my shoe and nudged it toward the gutter where lost objects go to retire. You don't help at a checkpoint unless you're prepared to be considered part of the problem. Airports don't reward initiative. They reward compliance and a healthy respect for boundaries no one can describe. Guard 3 found the paper pass and held it up like evidence. "This is smudged," he said, as if smudges have alibis. "You printed at home." "Yes," she said, hopeful at being asked a normal question. "That's not standard," Guard 2 chimed, peering at it. "What is this Times New Roman?" He looked up like a man who discovered a new felony. "Fonts." "It's the airline's PDF," she said, small and exact. "My phone died, I printed at the kiosk," the machine said. Guard 1 cut across her sentence like a snowplow. Ma'am, step aside for secondary, arms out, feet apart. I wanted to ask what crime a cardigan could commit, but airports convert sarcasm into delay, and I had a flight to miss. Still, something about the way they closed the circle around her, too fast, too proud, put splinters in my composure. Hey, I said before common sense could sedate me, her pass is fine. 3 heads snapped like a chorus of owls who just learned to judge. Guard two's face did the thing faces do when they realize a bystander has discovered courage on clearance. Sir, mind your items. My items are minded, I said, indicating my laptop like a pet. You're building a fire over a paper cut. Guard 1 stepped forward an inch. Do you work here? No, I said, but I read. Then read the sign, Guard 3 said, and pointed at a laminated rectangle that could have said literally anything, because laminating makes ideas immune to criticism. The woman was still apologizing to the air, which accepted apologies at scale. I'm sorry, she said, softer now, as if volume had been taxed. I have to get to gate 42. My sister, the next word did arrive. Guard 1 made a note on a clipboard, the airport's favorite talisman. Ma'am, if you cannot comply, we'll escalate. There it was, escalate, not assist, not explain, escalate, the kind of word that turns small mistakes into documentation, the kind of word that makes crowds stare at their shoes. 3 passengers behind me. A guy in a plain jacket and gray hoodie laid his bin on the rollers with the care of someone who respects gravity. He had the posture of a person who'd learned to save energy by not wasting motion. He was unremarkable except for how precisely unremarkable he was, like a piece of furniture you don't notice until the house is on fire, and suddenly you rely on it. Guard 2 took the woman's tote and tilted it like a detective interrogating a witness. Ma'am, explain the lotion. It's lotion, she said. My hands get dry. Why is it not in the bag? He asked, even though he'd watched her put it in the bag. It is, she said. It was. The kid in front of me whispered, why don't they help her? The mother said, SHH, which is adult for I don't have an answer that doesn't make me sad. Guard 3 leaned on the edge of the belt, giving the tote a look I'd reserve for suspicious walls. Any sharp objects, ma'am, anything that could poke or cut. Just the keys, she said. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing, Guard 1 snapped, which is an interesting instruction to a person being cornered by people with radios. That's when the man in the plain jacket stepped to the front, placed his own boarding pass on the stainless steel like a whisper with edges, and said, in a voice that carried exactly to the people it needed to reach, she's mine. A sentence is a small thing in a big room, but sometimes it rearranges furniture. The line inhaled. The guards did what people do when their script is interrupted. They went louder. Sir, step back, Guard 2 started, finding safety in syllables. Guard 1 turned, prepared to perform authority. You can't. Guard 3 looked up properly for the first time, and the room did a small pivot that only certain faces can purchase. Recognition is a physical event. It tilts the air. Guard 3's eyebrows, those Yelp-writing brows, went from 5 stars of confidence to, we regret to inform you, in half a heartbeat. Mr. Statham, he said, voice suddenly remembering how to pronounce respect. Guard 1's mouth closed like a window in rain. Guard 2 blinked the way people blink in training videos called What Not to Do. The radios in their pockets held their breath. Jason Statham didn't grandstand. He didn't smile. He didn't ask if anyone wanted a selfie. He tapped the edge of the bin with one knuckle. We don't corner people for being nervous, he said, and the line behind me decided to become an audience. Guard 1 straightened to full height, which wasn't small. Sir, we were following. The script, Jason said, not unkindly. I've read it. I've taught parts of it. The idea is safety, not theater. Guard 2's radio crackled exactly when it shouldn't, a sound like an excuse clearing its throat. We had a smudged boarding pass, he offered. Jason nudged the retrieved pass with his index finger, scanning it. It's valid. He lifted his eyes, which did not come to play. And smudged isn't suspicious, it's paper. He picked up the clear plastic bag, pressed the zipper, and then handed it back to the woman with 2 hands, the way you hand someone back a country. Here you go, he said, gentle, like those words had earned softness. Take your time. I'm sorry, she said on reflex. "Don't be," he said. "You didn't do anything wrong." Guard 3 cleared his throat. "We intended to assist." "You intended to escalate," Jason said. He didn't raise his voice, but the fluorescent lights took notice. "There's a difference." He looked at the stanchions, then at Guard 1. "Open a lane. Let her through." Guard 1 hesitated in that particular flavor of hesitation that tastes like job security. Guard 2 looked at Guard 1 as if authority were a contagious disease he hoped to catch. Guard 3, now visibly wishing he had the power to turn invisible, stepped to the side and unhooked the nylon belt with exaggerated efficiency. The lane opened with a sigh, as if it had waited all morning to do that. The woman clutched her tote and boarding pass, eyes shining with the possibility that this too might be a trick. "Gate 42, she asked no one and everyone. "Straight ahead," Jason said. "Left at the bookstore that sells things no one reads." He almost smiled, almost. She nodded. "Thank you," she whispered, like gratitude was heavier than it looked. "Safe flight," he said. She moved on cautious feet, like the floor might reconsider. People pretended not to watch by watching. The line exhaled the breath it had been hoarding. Sterile silence rushed in to fill the gap where conflict had been growing like mold. Guard 1 stood still, recalculating. Guard 2 discovered the fascinating complexity of a bin's geometry. Guard 3 checked the time on a watch that didn't need checking. Jason didn't step back into anonymity yet. He picked up the spillover detritus, mint packet, grocery receipt, the pill bottle, and placed each item with an attention that lowered the temperature of the morning. Then he looked at the guards, not to humiliate but to assess. "Gentlemen," he said, "if a person is confused, you explain. If a person is panicked, you calm. If a person is non-compliant, you still manage to act like you passed kindergarten." Guard 1 opened his mouth to argue with gravity. "We have procedures," he said. "Good," Jason said. "Use them, don't weaponize them." Behind us, some business guy decided to clap once, very softly, and then remembered his hands weren't a committee. The kid in front tugged his mom's sleeve. "Is he a superhero?" he whispered. "No," his mom said, not looking away. "He's just an adult." Jason turned to me. Maybe he'd seen me be mouthy. Maybe he was attuned to rooms like this the way certain people can smell rain. "You good?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, surprised to be included in my own morning. "Thanks." He nodded like a checkmark. The PA system chimed in to pretend it had always intended to be helpful. "Attention passengers, please be kind to one another," it announced, plagiarizing kindergarten. From somewhere near the ID podium, a supervisor in a navy blazer appeared with the energy of a man who arrives after the movie has ended to ask how it was. He was already in apology posture, shoulders forward, hands practicing contrition. "Mr. Statham," he said, measured, "did we have a situation?" "Had," Jason said. The supervisor did a quick audit of faces, saw 3 employees who suddenly loved paperwork, and sent them to assist the next guests. They drifted away like ships who just discovered wind. Jason collected his jacket from the bin, folded it as if polyester were silk, and stepped aside to let the machine do its song and dance on his belongings. The arch beeped for me, because the arch beeps for everyone. I stepped through the millimeter-wave hug and held my breath like it mattered. A guard waved me on with the lazy nobility of a traffic cone. At the end of the belt, the woman looked back once, found Jason with her eyes, and gave the kind of small, grateful nod that people keep for strangers who didn't have to care. Part 2. You can tell when a story isn't finished because the people who might get in trouble start building alibis out of procedure. Guard 1 reassembled his face into something that could pass for composure. Guard 2 whispered to Guard 3 in the way coworkers whisper when every syllable is evidence. The supervisor adjusted his tie, the universal sign for "I sense paperwork in my future." Jason waited, not impatient, not indulgent. He waited like time didn't run him, like he rented it with an option to buy. The supervisor cleared his throat. "We appreciate your assistance," he said. "Let's just ensure protocols were." "Protocols are fine," Jason said. "Your people forgot the part where you treat humans like humans." Guard 1 stepped forward with a kind of careful bravado, as if he'd remembered the scene where the underdog claws back a point. "Sir," she approached the belt without following directions. She created a hazard. She dropped a piece of paper, Jason said. If a piece of paper is a hazard, your airport has bigger problems than this line. Guard 2 found courage in a word he liked. We were going to escalate. To what? Jason asked, as calm as drywall, more dangerous. To more of the same, or to an apology with forms attached. The supervisor did an important glance at a screen that wasn't displaying anything useful. Mr. Statham, perhaps we can step aside and… No need, Jason said, not unkindly. The lesson is small and public. Keep it small and public. He turned to Guard 3, the one who had recognized him first. You knew better. Guard 3's throat worked around a confession that didn't want to be born. Yes, sir. The next time say it earlier, Jason said. Out loud, the badge is not a muzzle. Guard 3 nodded like he'd found gravity again. The belt clattered and spit my backpack toward me. I caught it because today, at least, I could be useful to a bag. I lingered within earshot, the way you do when a free seminar arrives uninvited. The woman 2 lanes over now was repacking with that post-adrenaline shakiness that makes even zippers look like challenges. An older couple approached her, soft voices and gentle questions. Gate, do you need help? The small ecosystem of strangers took a breath and tried to become useful. Humanity is shy, but it's not dead. Jason waited until the woman drifted toward the bookstore he'd mentioned. Then he leaned one elbow on the table where the gray bins begin every tragic arc in this place. He didn't posture. He made eye contact with the supervisor, then with Guard 1 and Guard 2 in turn, like a roll call. Here's what I saw, he said. A passenger made a mistake. You made it bigger. You turned a teachable moment into target practice. You forgot the difference between policy and pride. Guard 1's jaw moved, then decided against it. The supervisor went managerial. We will, of course, review the footage. Good, Jason said. And while you're at it, review tone, review posture, review how many times you said ma'am like it was an accusation. You can be firm without being performative. You can be cautious without being cruel. Guard 2 tried a pivot. Sir, we are under pressure to keep the line moving. So move it, Jason said. The fastest way to move a line is to help people through it, not pull them out of it. This was not a speech. Speeches are long and about the person giving them. This was a tune-up, a torque wrench on loose bolts. The supervisor's radio crackled. A gate change somewhere else, a lost bag with identity issues. He offered a careful nod. Point taken. Jason slid his boarding pass back into his jacket pocket. The edge wore a crease from having been used as a prop rather than a weapon. He glanced at me again, as if verifying I'd witnessed what I thought I'd witnessed. I lifted a shoulder half an inch, the international sign for yeah, that happened. He picked up his carry-on, a scuffed little thing that had obviously flown more miles than most houseplants live, and angled toward the concourse. That's when Guard 1 made the mistake you make when you've been embarrassed and you want to reclaim a sliver of terrain. He didn't mean harm. He meant dignity, which is different and often more hazardous. Sir, Guard 1 called after him. What exactly is your role with us? He wanted a title to arrange his feelings around. He wanted a job description he could either resent or worship. He wanted something to tell a story about tonight when he texted someone. You'll never guess who. Jason turned back only enough to be polite. Occasional trainer, he said. Frequent traveler, reluctant audience. Guard 1's lips moved like maybe. A thank you was trying to escape. Jason spared him the labor. You're not the villain, he said. You're just out of tune, fix it. My gate was the usual 3 zip codes away, and I started that pilgrimage, but the terminal had changed color. People walked softer. The PA stopped nagging and tried encouraging for a change. A janitor paused his mop to let a late jogger pass and got a thank you instead of a stare. I spotted the woman near the bookstore's neon sign, the one that sells bestsellers and snacks pretending to be meals. She was studying her ticket like it might bite again. I walked over, made myself visible before I spoke, because surprises are rude when someone's nerves are down to threads. Gate 42 is this way, I said, gentle. I'm headed there. She blinked, brought her focus to my face, then to the sign behind me. I'm sorry, the habit still had momentum. Yes, thank you. No rush, I said, plenty of time. Is there? She asked, half believing. Enough, I said. which is often true even when it is. We walked the moving walkway together, a device invented to make humans feel like luggage with opinions. She clutched her tote by the strap as if it might leap to freedom. After a few yards, she said, "My sister's having surgery. I shouldn't have told them." It sounded dramatic. "Context isn't drama," I said. "Context is why we don't set the world on fire." She made a sound that could have been a laugh if it had eaten breakfast. He knew what to say. "He's had practice," I said, "in rooms where the stakes are less theoretical." At gate 42, a kindness was occurring. The older couple who'd checked on her were saving a seat with a magazine fortress. The agent behind the counter was demonstrating a thing called eye contact. A little community had formed, the kind that dissolves as soon as boarding starts but still counts. "Thank you," she said again, as if gratitude needed multiple coats. "I don't know, I just thank you." "You're fine," I said. "You're going where you need to go." I hesitated, then added, "If they give you a hard time at the gate, use the magic words." "What are they?" she asked, wary but curious. "None," I said. "You don't owe anyone magic words." She smiled for the first time. It landed like a bird that found a branch not made of rules. I peeled off to a coffee kiosk to negotiate with caffeine. The barista wrote my name as Kevin, which is fair. Airports blur everyone into Kevins if you let them. While I waited, I looked back down the concourse. Jason Statham, still a plain jacket in a sea of aspirational athleisure, stood by a departures board reading it like it might lie. He wasn't basking. He wasn't collecting reactions. He was, as promised, just traveling. Guard 3 appeared at the edge of the concourse, walking like a man who'd remembered he has legs for reasons other than standing in the way. He didn't approach Jason. He approached the woman. He kept a respectful distance, hands visible, voice lowered. "Ma'am," he said, "I'm sorry for the way that went." Not a corporate "we apologize for any inconvenience." A real sentence with ownership. The agent glanced up, registered tone, and relaxed. The woman dipped her head, the international "we can move on" sign. Guard 3 nodded like he'd been given an absolution the size of a thimble but the weight of a bowling ball. He turned, saw me watching, and offered a small, rueful shrug. It said, "We can do better." It said, "Sometimes we will." Coffee acquired, I threaded toward my gate. The concourse did what concourses do, arched, echoed, advertised. The smell of cinnamon pretzels fought a cold war with the smell of jet fuel. Announcements tried their hand at melody. A toddler announced independence with volume and Cheerios. By the time I reached the queue, pre-boarding had started. Strollers, wheelchairs, people with connections to the gods. The woman was in group something high enough to require patience. When her group was called, she stood and moved like a person who finally believed the ground would not be pulled out from under her. As she scanned her pass, the gate reader beeped an approving beep. The agent looked up and said, "Safe flight." 2 words that had the decency to mean it this time. Jason passed later than a man with his face has to, hands in pockets, carry on small enough to make the overhead bin feel trusted rather than assaulted. When the scanner beeped for him, it sounded the same as it had for everyone else. That's how it should be. That's how it rarely is. I took my seat near the wing, the place where turbulence feels honest. Taxiing is a kind of confession. You hear every rattle, every loose idea vibrating in the fuselage. As we lifted, the city squinted up at us like it had an opinion. The cloud layer took us in, anonymous and equal, the way only sky and sleep manage. Somewhere over the grid of suburbs, I thought about the 2 words that had reset a terminal. They weren't magic. They weren't a threat. They were a claim, not ownership, responsibility. The kind you can borrow even when someone isn't technically yours. She's mine, he's mine, they're mine. Words that mean, this one matters on my watch. When we landed, everyone stood at once like gophers discovering the sun. The aisle clogged with carry-ons that were clearly violating physics. People pretended they'd forgotten how doors work. A man with a hat sat down again, accepting reality sooner than the rest of us. In the shuffle, I caught sight of the cardigan woman 3 rows up, being handed her tote by the older couple like a relay baton in a race that had several winners. She turned, found me with that same small nod as before, and then moved forward into a day that had renegotiated its terms. I did what travelers do after a story. I checked my phone as if it would translate meaning into notifications. It didn't. It never does. The only proof you get for moments like that is how the air in your chest sits a little differently for a while. Outside, the terminal smelled like rain that had changed its mind. I watched people reunite, arms, laughter, a spectrum of noises that make security lines worth it. I spotted a plain jacket disappearing into the crowd without ceremony. No spotlight, no slow clap, just one adult among many, spending the only currency that actually spends: attention. That's all this was, really. 2 words, yes, but mostly attention. In a building that asks you to remove everything before you pass, here was a reminder that you can keep one thing on you at all times: the decision to show up. And when someone does, even the loud parts of an airport remember how to be quiet in the right places.